Ode to a Nightingale is an ode written by romantic poet John Keats in 1819. The poem had 8 stanzas and each stanza had 10 lines. This ode follows A B C D E C D E rhyme scheme with iambic pentameter. This ode to a nightingale was first published in 1819 in the Annals of the Fine Arts, the magazine, and later in 1820 it was published in Lamia, Isabella, and other poems. This ode was written in May, the springtime, when Keats was in Brown's house, the garden of Spaniards in Hampstead, London. Ode to Nightingale was the largest ode of Keats. In stanza 1, as Keats drank hemlock, hemlock is a poison that kills Socrates. He feels drowsiness in his sense and pain in his heart, or he feels he was emptied by the taking opioid just 1 minute before, and he feels river of Lethe sunk him. River of Lethe is a river of forgetfulness in mythology. The poet Keats feels like that, not by the envy of the nightingale's happiness, but by the happiness on seeing the happiness of the nightingale. The poet calls the nightingale as light-winged triad. Triad means the spirit in mythological trees, and the nightingale singing in summer about melodies plot, about greenery and shadows of trees. There is no literary device in first stanza, only one imagery in this first stanza. As one the though hemlock I had drink is a imagery literary device in this stanza. Now second stanza. Vintage is a wine that cooled by storing in the belly of the earth, and it was tasted with flowers, greenness of country, dance and song and myth of country. So that poets calls Nightingale as a draught of vintage. The poet drink wine through his purple-stained mouth. That wine brim with purples. He think that wine was warm of south. After he drank it, he feels that he had inspiration of the poet from Hippocrene. Now he feels world was unseen and nightingales also faded in the darkness of the forest. In second stanza, there is an one literary device called metaphor. The trope of vintage is a metaphor in the second stanza. And now we move to the third stanza. By drink and opium, everything far away and dissolve forget to the poet. But the nightingale among the leaves never known weariness, fever, and fret. In human world, men sit and hearing the groans of each other. That palsy shake their life to its end. In the end of life, their youth became pale and their visage became thin, and then they die at last. In that stage, people feels it was sorrow and despair to them. At the end of our life, beauty cannot fresh and love come to them maybe in future. In the fourth stanza, there is one literary device called personifications about beauty. Beauty cannot keep her lustrous eyes. And then next fourth stanza. The poet liked to fly with the nightingale, not by the drowsiness of the wine that charioted by Bacchus and his bird, but using the viewless wings of the poem. Though his brain was dulled by the wine, he was already with the nightingale. In tender night, the moon happily sitting her throne among stars, but the poet sitting in the darkness and tried to save himself, receiving what heaven sent him through breeze, wind, and glooms. In stanza 4, there is one personification. Queen Moon is on her throne. And next, stanza 5. By the darkness, the poet unable to see what flower is near in his feet and what kind of insect hangs in the forth. But the poet Keats able to guess the grass, the thicket, the fruit tree, hawthorn, the eglantine and the violets and masquerade. Masquerade is the eldest child of the May. And also he guessed the murmur of flies in the evening of the summer day. In stanza 5, we have one literary device called imagery in the line fading violets covered up in the leaves. This line had imagery. And now stanza 6. In the darkness, the poet Keats understand that he was half love in death and called death via mused rhyme to take his breath. Than ever, now the poet Keats think that this was the right time to die this night without pain. While the nightingale singing its song with an ecstasy, but it was not here to the poet, so that the requiem of nightingale became a sword. This stanza 6 explain the poet like to die so that he called death to urge him. In stanza 7, the bird nightingale was not die because it was immortal. The song heard by the poet was already heard by the emperor and the clown in ancient days. This immortal song was never tread by the new generation. Perhaps this nightingale song had its path through Ruth. In sad heart, she was longing to return to her home from alien place. Ruth is a biblical character, and also it became a magical chasement in the form of seas in the fairy lands forlorn. Now we can go for stanza 8. Forlorn, the word is like a bell. It brings the sound of nightingale to the poet again in his heart. Fancy cannot cheat the poet as the nightingale cheated him like deceiving a elf by flying away from the poet. The song of nightingale faded away in the meadow, streams, hillside, and in the valley. Now the poet asks, the fate of nightingale is a vision or a dream. Its music was over, so that I wake or sleep. The poem ends with rhetorical question. In stanza 8, there is one literary device called simile in the line forlorn. The word is like a bell. Yes, students, I feel I give you simple and clear explanations for you for the poem called "O to a Nightingale." I think it is very useful to you. If you feel any difficulties or disadvantages in these explanations, please mention in my comment sections. You too, guys.